What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? We're putting the Ope and Hope up in here.
That's right. Actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking one of these days we're gonna have to add like a Gen Alpha soon.
I know, yeah, it's coming. I don't know. Nobody talks shit about Gen Alpha yet, though, so I don't know how we would.
Jared Benson does like a generational thing, and he basically the only thing he does for Gen Alpha is that like they got like a baby face. They're always holding an iPad and like they're always coughing and they're like laughing at Skivity and shit.
iPad generation. I'm sure I can work that into our.
Oh yeah, we'll make something up. But yeah, man, how was your trip from Milwaukee, Minnesota?
I'll tell you, it's nice that it's right next door. You know,
right? I mean, that's where the governor does all of his governoring stuff, right?
I mean, Walz is the governor of Milwaukee, Minnesota.
Right. That's
but
what
it's been going downhill.
That's what Fox News says. Yep. It's burnt to a crisp, and that's why you can't find it on the map anymore. No, yeah, obviously we're joking about I don't even remember her name, but
Laura Ingraham.
Yeah, Laura Ingraham saying she knows Minnesota so well that, she's just so sad about Milwaukee, the capital just being burnt down to a crisp after the George Floyd riots. So just gotta, take the moments where you can get them a little bit.
I like this one is Gen Alpha is the got any games on your phone generation.
That's, yeah.
It's a little wordy for the title,
yeah,
but
it's something. It's something. We'll keep brainstorming there.
Well,
why don't you tell us about our future vice president, hopefully, because you have already spent a lot of time on your platform talking about him.
I have. I've been talking about Walz before it was cool, like
before anybody cared.
Yeah, before anybody gave a shit. I was hyping Walz, back in the day. So who is Tim Walz? I think a lot of you have really learned that at this point. But he's a former high school teacher, football coach, faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance, 24-year National Guard vet, former congressman, and current governor of our great state of Minnesota, which is a hell of a fucking resume.
Yeah, man. Like, that's... even, like, Barack Obama was like, this dude fucks. So that like if Barack Obama's like, yeah, this guy's got a resume, it's probably true. It's probably true.
It's insane. And then it's like, all right, great, he's got a resume, but there's lots of people in Washington with a resume, right?
Yeah. I mean usually it comes with a like Ivy League degree and not like, where did he even Mankato State?
Yeah, I think he went right here in Minnesota, Mankato,
for one of his bachelor's or a master's degree or whatever for teaching, something like
that. But even with the resume, usually comes a little bit of a disconnect, especially with the Ivy League resume
right.
shit. Which Mankato's definitely not Ivy League, so
I don't know, man. It's pretty bougie.
But anyway, he is not out of touch in the way that we are used to seeing from politicians on the national scale. In the way that, like, he is more like you than you are like you, like
yeah.
Owns no stocks or bonds. I even own some stocks, not a lot, but like even I have a few stocks.
I've divested my portfolio. I'm all in the 401k now.
Are you? Yeah, I don't know. I have like $1,000 on one of those
I just
stock trading apps that's changed into names 40 times, and I haven't logged into it. In like
I get stressed out. I get too stressed out trying to beat myself up over like, oh, I just sold and now it's up 30 cents and I just lost out on $50. Like that. Stresses me out, so I'm just leaving it to the ever knowledgeable Fidelity fucking asshats who take like 3% of your total profit, whatever.
So yeah, and I mean I've got my Roth IRA, which is technically still stocks. It's technically
Yeah.
still owning. He doesn't even have that.
Well, he has a pension,
He has a pension. That's not stocks. It's
but
not.
pensions usually invest in the stock market.
But you don't own it.
True.
So he doesn't own any.
I mean, he's tangentially owned stocks like most Americans who have a 401k or a pension.
But you own the stocks in your 401k, where you don't own the stocks in your pension. The company or the union owns the funds in the
Someday
pension.
he will receive funding that is related to owning stocks. But I get your point. Like he is
Okay.
not like he's not an investor
No.
like fucking like Nancy Pelosi or some
No.
shit, or like all the hundreds of Congress people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year off the stock market.
Yeah, he owns no stocks in that sense, no bonds, no investment. He doesn't even own a house. He's got no real estate
Well, yeah, 'cause
whatsoever.
he's lived
He lives
in the governor's
mansion. But how often do people get elected? They don't like sell their house. They're just like, yeah, I'm just gonna move into the governor's
well,
mansion.
to be fair, he did move from Mankato,
Mhm.
so like it's not exactly a commute.
Yeah,
But I know
but I mean, like, you still move
agree.
in. You don't have to sell your house. You
No,
can
you don't have to.
Just like,
You don't have to.
but yeah, he sold his house. So he's got no investments whatsoever. In 2017, when he was running, he had a net worth of $13,000.
I mean, my Civic is worth almost that much.
Currently, he has a net worth of a little under $1 million, which is mostly his pension and a life insurance policy. I know $1 million sounds like a lot net worth wise, but that is
No,
next to nothing.
when you're 60 years old, $1 million net worth is honestly still low.
Yeah,
like
very low.
If you're within 10 years of retiring and you only have $1 million in net worth, like you probably have not done the best job.
Right.
But if he makes it as VP, he'll be definitely adding to that. I don't know
Right.
what the vice president's salary is, but I'm sure it's
Well, I mean, it's six figures, but so is the governor's salary. It was $127,000 when he got elected. They upped it to $149,000, and he chose to keep his salary at the old amount. Like, he didn't even take the raise. The dude is like, if you asked AI to design the perfect Midwestern man, it would just it would 3D print walls. That's what you would get. Like, he is so painfully Midwestern and relatable that, like, I don't know. I didn't know that we'd ever see somebody like this in politics, and then we got him as governor, and then I never thought we'd see somebody like this, who would possibly be sitting in the White House adjacent to the Oval Office.
Not today. Like 50, 60 years ago, like maybe when people like that was still the majority of people,
Right.
and like nobody thought of like rich people being like the greatest things ever. But also, I just want to point out he might be the perfect Midwestern man to be running as a politician, but he wouldn't be my perfect Midwestern man that AI created.
Why is that?
He's older than I would like a brand new person to be made.
Yeah, okay. I mean, he's 60, but like you don't picture somebody our age when you think of the perfect like if you're just the stereotypical Midwestern man is that middle to older age dad, and he looks older than he is.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Cuz him and Kamala are the same age.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like, I mean, a year apart, yeah.
You're definitely on point though.
Yeah. I don't know. He's it's impressive, and I know that like Fox News has been giving him shit about how he doesn't have any stocks or bonds. They're like, he doesn't believe in capitalism, and it's like, no, he's just in the same boat as most Americans because he's not a greedy fuck.
Well, also public servants shouldn't be fucking investing, you fucking asshats.
Yeah, somebody asked if I've ever met Tim. Sorry, it's really hard to keep up with the YouTube comments because they disappear right away.
You're gonna get some double vision going.
Oh
here.
yeah, I'm all over the place now. But I have met Tim, and he is just as genuine in person too as he seems. When he goes, "Oh, can we get that person some water up there on
Right.
stage?" Like,
Yeah.
he is that guy.
That was a good moment. You don't see that too often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Whether-
somebody just pointed out Tim Walz is a year younger than Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's
See, he's not that. He's not even retirement age
But
yet.
Brad Pitt also isn't the perfect man anymore. So like it's been a while since he's been like the sexiest man,
It is true.
Sure, you said the perfect man, not
I
the
said
sexiest.
the perfect Midwestern. I should have said the stereotypical, like the perfect stereotype of a Midwestern man. Like
There you go.
he, he is. I don't know. I'm swooning over a gray-haired, balding Midwestern dude. But,
Boomer nonetheless.
Boomer nonetheless. Yeah.
I mean, just to show all those people who call us ageist,
I'll stand a good boomer. I mean, it's just it's the overarching,
right.
how the generation as a whole kind of fucked us. Not the specific boomers. There's lots of great boomers out there.
Yes.
It's just the boomer generation as a whole was not great.
It has the results are in, and not good is the tabulation.
Could use improvement.
Yes, would not recommend.
So yeah, Walz. It's been amazing seeing him up there because obviously the GOP was all gung ho to just campaign against Joe. And now that's not an option, and and they were all gung ho to be sexist on Kamala, and we knew that was coming, and the racist shit and all of that. But then you just throw the perfect white man in the mix, and there's nothing they've got. It's been amazing seeing them flounder.
Like a slippery, bottle of mayo. You just nothing, you just can't grab a hold of them.
Yep. and so he. They're trying to find stuff to make him look bad. And the only kind of edge they have in that sense is that a lot of people don't know a lot about Minnesota.
Right.
So like they can just say dumb shit and some people are going to believe it because it's like, where's Minnesota again? Like,
right.
Yeah, it's got to be true.
Nobody outside of Minnesota and Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota gives a fuck about what's happening in Minnesota, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to go through the stuff that they're throwing at him to try to see if something will stick, and nothing has been. I mean, you know,
I mean, they've tried a lot of different things here,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got basically all of them. And I've done some research into a lot of them, and there are some caveats that I'll add in here as we're going throughout. But generally speaking, they're like it's like a dent on the hood of your car. It's like, does it bother you?
Nah.
Kind of not really, no. But does it impact your performance? Not at all.
So yeah, let's get into it. The big one, and I think one of the most frustrating ones that I've heard, at least from like other military members, and I wasn't in the military, so I give a fuck less. I don't care as long as it's not like an outright falsity. To try to make you into something you're not. But you know, J.D. Vance, the guy who took pictures in Iraq and thinks that he's Rambo now, apparently, says that Walz lied about his military rank, and he had stolen valor. So here's the thing: is Walz served for 7 months after 24 years of service in the National Guard. His final promotion, with 7 months before he retired, was Command Sergeant Major, which. What is a command sergeant major? Because that's just words to me.
Yeah, basically, it's obviously it's the highest ranking enlisted highest ranking enlisted member that is kind of rank that serves in the Army. Like you don't go higher without becoming an officer, which would be a dumbass thing to do. But so it's like it's a really prestigious position, and like you don't get there without really knowing what the fuck you're doing, like beyond, like you're like the guy who can fix any car that is ever brought to him. You're the guy who can just do anything that you're the subject matter expert.
You can do your job, that guy's job, all of their jobs, all at the same time.
You can do your job and everybody's job below you, to the point where you would be proficient basically in it, or at least could teach somebody to be proficient if you couldn't physically do it, because generally you're a little bit older. If you're a command sergeant major, you're probably in your 40s or 50s.
I mean, he was 41 at the time, so
sure, yeah, exactly.
Probably 40 when he got promoted to it, but so he served 7 months in that rank, and when he got promoted to that rank, it was a conditional promotion based on him completing training. And from what I've read, that's not uncommon for people to be promoted with conditions of
Yep.
you have to do
Happens.
this training, so on and so forth.
Happens all the time. Yep.
So he then decided he wanted to run for Congress. He put in his retirement. He retired, and he was only like halfway through the training, so he hadn't completed it.
Right.
So he retired at that rank, and then he got demoted after his retirement back to his previous rank, and basically it's an administrative demotion that affects his retirement pay and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
It wasn't a punitive, it wasn't a punishment. It was just
No.
these were the conditions of the rank. This is what we're going to pay you for your retirement benefits is basically what it comes down to. So saying that he lied about serving in that rank is bullshit. He served in that rank for 7 months. He achieved that rank. The National Guard has said as much.
Yep.
It's perfectly perfectly accurate for him to say that he served in that rank.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. It's, if we're being nitpicky, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to say he retired as a command sergeant major.
Sure, but I mean, he technically did, because when he retired, that was his rank, and then after his
Well-
retirement was when he was demoted. And I don't think he has said he retired at that.
I don't think he has, but I have heard, the Alpha
Mhm.
News, stands saying
Yeah.
that that's what he did say at some point during his
Mhm.
campaigning throughout the years. I haven't been able to really find anything to that effect.
Yeah.
So I don't give a shit. If he wants to say he was a sergeant major, command sergeant major, yeah, absolutely,
Mhm.
he was. He did do the job.
Yep.
Did he fulfill the requirements to retain the rank for retirement? No, he
Mhm.
didn't. So, it's a really minor aspect to
It's
a long
splitting hairs.
career.
Yeah.
It's splitting the tiniest hair on
Uh-huh.
a very long, very good career where he was deployed in support of war efforts,
Mhm.
in just peacekeeping efforts.
Yep.
So
He did go overseas.
he did go
Yeah.
overseas. So he did as much for the war that J.D. Vance did, if not more.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
So,
he actually did stuff aside from press releases to make us look like we were less of the assholes over there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and somebody here pointed out that said they believed, and I haven't fact checked this, that the school was only once a year and required the family to move to Texas for 10 months, and there's very few guard slots at schools, so it was just probably one of those things where he didn't have on his schedule for running for Congress and retiring the time to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's probably very accurate. I
Mhm.
mean, people were saying, "Oh, he could have stayed in and still ran for Congress." It's like, sure, technically you
Mhm.
could do that,
Yeah.
but physically, could you?
Yeah,
probably not very well.
Hours? Because this is still weekend warrior shit too, where you got to go a weekend a month or
Yeah,
something.
you still got to do your regular,
Mhm.
National Guard duties. You still then you'd have to go do the training on top of that, which you can kind of overlap the training, your normal duties.
Yeah.
But then you're not going to run for Congress,
Right.
and do that at the same
Right,
time.
and plus then you'd be missing important weekends for campaigning and stuff. I mean, I know
Oh, yeah.
people. I know people personally who are campaigning for local stuff, like Minnesota State House.
Sure.
And the hours, I mean, they're retired, and the
Right.
hours they put in. And I know somebody personally campaigning for U.S. Congress for our district. Well, we had her on the podcast, Jen Schultz.
Yeah.
And the hours that she puts in,
Who won her primary, by the way.
that is, yeah, well, I mean, I knew that was going
Not
to happen,
that-
but it's
yeah.
awesome. It is awesome. But the hours that takes to run a successful campaign
God.
is a full-time job.
Yes.
And he's
Much-
already was having to work a job because, he is a poor person.
he's a regular dude, and also he would have to fly back and forth from Texas to run the campaign in
Right?
Minnesota.
No, it's
what-
just
are you,
it's just
you
it's
fucking
fucking
joking?
insane. So the fact that they keep going on about that, and it seems to have backfired mostly on them by attacking a record of a man who. Well, let's get into more of that, because there's also that he abandoned his unit to avoid combat.
Okay, so first of all, I just
Mhm.
want to point out that pre 9/11, pre
Mhm.
George Bush, the United States National Guard was not supposed to be deployed for warfare purposes.
Nope.
And in fact, Walz actually protested the rule change that Bush had made to
Mhm.
allow for National Guard units to be deployed into wartime efforts.
Yeah.
So first of all, he's been in the National Guard for 20 some fucking years.
24 years, yep.
Well, I'm saying he was in for 20 years. Then George Bush makes this rule change. So even if nothing else changed, that alone, him
Mhm.
deciding I don't want to be deployed, based off of him doing 20 years, thinking that this is the way that, my, obligation stands, and then you change the obligation and you say you don't want to be deployed? Fuck yeah. You have absolutely every right to say, I'm out. I've done 20 years. There's no way that I want to be doing this right now. And,
well, especially as you're nearing 40 and like
Yeah.
you want to get deployed in your 40s and go to a combat zone when you signed up for a job that deployment wasn't part of.
Wartime deployments.
Wartime deployment wasn't part of your job description that you signed up for.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a great point, and I didn't realize about the rule change. I mean, I remember it being brought up when it happened,
Right.
but I had completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, I think the when he ran for Congress the first time, they were trying to like post stories about him like protesting that change at like George Bush's at the White House or whatever and shit. Like he was like actively protesting against the military, blah blah blah. So that's how I heard it. So it was from right wing propaganda that I got that factoid.
So there's that they're saying he retired before his unit deployed, and he did retire close-ish to when his unit deployed, but he served honorably for 24 fucking years.
Yeah.
And then he was 41 years old, which is it's like being a quarterback at 41 years old. You're not going to go run and be on the front lines at 40-something years old.
I mean, you're going to tear that Achilles.
Yeah.
Also, as a command sergeant major, you wouldn't be on the front lines.
Right.
So let's just make that clear.
But then
it's
once
still
again,
a time commitment.
It is a time commitment, but then once again, it's like saying that he's trying to avoid, like he's being a coward because he doesn't want to go to a combat zone. He wouldn't have been necessarily in a dangerous position going over there anyways.
No, yeah.
So he'd already done his deployments to other places, and it would have been a very similar thing. It just would have been in a slightly shittier location, right?
Probably more than slightly. But anyway, but yeah. So I mean, even if, and if we presume that he did know that his unit was going to be deployed,
and timeout. So before we go there, I just want to say that he announced his run for Congress in February of 2005. His last day with the Guard was May of 2005, and his unit received the official notice of deployment in July of 2005.
Sure.
Every single decision he made to get out of the Guard and run for Congress and do all that came before their official notice. Now, they did get a potential notice in March of 2005 that the potential notice of deployment within 2 years.
Sure.
But still, March to May, it's likely that he was already filling out that.
He was. I mean, just he announced his run for Congress in February. For him to have announced that and like met with all the people who are like, "Hey, we're gonna run your campaign. We're gonna support you in this campaign." Like that takes months.
Yeah.
So like he had to have basically made the decision in 2004.
Yeah, absolutely.
That he was going to retire. So to that point, there's the likelihood that he did know that they were going to be deployed.
Very
was
low.
Definitely going to happen. Was very, very low. And even if he did know, it still doesn't matter.
Somebody here said he submitted his retirement package in December of 2004. I couldn't find anything that said specifically when he submitted it when I was doing my research.
I was like trying to find this, but they generally, that stuff is a little bit difficult to locate because it's private information.
So I looked for it. I couldn't find anything, so I'm not going to.
But I would agree with that. I would say that that's probably likely for a command sergeant major. It should be months and months to do that.
It's not like you give your 2 weeks notice. And
no,
you're like, yep, I'm out.
For me as an E4, when I left, like it still took like probably 3 months for me to be like, yeah, I'm really sure. And they're like, okay, you're really sure? I was like, yeah. And then, all right, well, in 2 months when you're out, then we'll do the paperwork. So like they like to know ahead of time.
Yeah. So I don't think, but if he even did know, which is what you were going on with.
Yeah.
there.
Even if he did know, I think he has absolutely every right of just being in the Guard for more than 20 years. And then B, not wanting to be deployed as a war fighting task force when that's not what his National Guard had been for his entire career.
Right.
And then C, even if like in 2005 when they got the notice, they didn't deploy until mid 2006. So leaving his unit high and dry when they had over a year to replace him,
right?
like I get it, like he was with them for a while, but still, a year is a long time. In the military, shit changes.
Yeah.
People fucking come and go.
All
you
the
have
time.
no control, and you just Charlie Mike. You just keep moving.
And the military has a plan of succession for a plan of succession on just about everything in most cases, especially at that level.
Well, right. Worst case, the next enlisted person would take the responsibility if that's what they needed to do, and they would have been just fine. So that's all I have to say.
So if you're repeating that bullshit about him abandoning his unit, you can go, sit on a pineapple and fucking spin, because you're a piece of shit. He did more for this country than most people just in the military, and he's done more for this country outside of the military.
Right.
I don't get it, and the fact that it's another former service member trying to pick on him for this is just
when
it's
he
disgusting.
Spent 4 times his amount of time in service as fucking JD Vance. Like, fuck off, bro. Doesn't matter. Well, you could have been a fucking Silver Star recipient, and then just did your 6 years, and then you're trying to ridicule somebody who did perfectly fine service for 24 years,
right?
And we would still think you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, absolutely, because he is a piece of shit. JD Vance is a huge piece of couch fucking shit. Allegedly.
We don't want that defamation coming our way.
He's a public official. We can say whatever the fuck we want about him.
I'm sure we can try.
Anyway, so that one's debunked. He lied about seeing combat is another one, and no, he didn't. He never suggested he's seen combat. I saw one thing where he said he carried weapons of war in war, or something. And
I think that's pretty much exactly what he says. I carried weapons like that of war in war,
right?
And I'm like, that's a generalization, and he carried them during wartime. So like, I wouldn't say like I technically carried a weapon of war in war, but if I was deployed, not even in a war zone, and I was just doing operations during wartime, then I guess I feel like I could say that. So
yeah, and again, I think, and he said it was a misspeak, and if you look at the rest of his history about how he talked about his military service,
he says that all the fucking time. They found like one clip of him saying that.
Never once suggested that he served in a combat zone or did anything like that.
Exactly.
And it was just, I think that it was, it's sort of like the Buttigieg. I don't particularly like the line of, I was in the military and I carried a weapon of war, so I have some sense of authority on this when it comes to gun control. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but when we are talking about that specifically, it was in that context, and I don't think he was trying to allude that he was like in a combat zone.
No,
and I think it's just the way that it came out.
Gun safety regulations. So like, he's not like trying to like beef up his resume.
Right? Yeah.
He just like didn't say the perfect thing.
Right. And if that's the worst gaffe they can pull up on him, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
so, but
exactly.
no, I don't. There's no reason to believe, and especially looking back at his history of how he's talked about his service, there's no reason to suggest that he has tried to misrepresent it in any way.
To say stolen valor is like the biggest exaggeration of like the year of 2024.
Right.
Like, honestly, I don't think like that's an insane thing to say. So that's the military record. Another thing that they're talking about is, he had a single DUI when he was 29,
something like that. It
30,
was like 30
old?
fucking years ago.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
So he did get pulled over in Nebraska. Was it Nebraska?
It was Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska. He had a 12% blood alcohol level. Limits 10.
You mean a 0.12?
10%, 0.12 is the same.
But isn't it 0.08? I don't know.
Minnesota is 0.08. In Nebraska, when he got pulled over, the article that I read said that it was 0.10 was the limit.
Good old days.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, so like he was like, yeah, it was a mistake, and he's basically, I don't know if he's 100% sober or not.
No, he said it was that's what caused him to stop drinking.
Okay, so there you go.
Which actually knocks him down a point as a Midwesterner, just a little bit, because you can't be a sober Midwesterner. Right? What the fuck is that shit?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, to me, it makes him more relatable.
I mean, I wouldn't call that relatable, but
Are you from around here, man? Like,
I'm not from around Pine City, but
the
like,
Midwest in general. Yeah, I mean, they give DUIs out like door prizes around here. It's yeah, somebody here, a DUI is a rite of passage in Wisconsin. That's it's true. It's
hey,
just
if it's relatable to anybody, more power to you because he's a good person. So
I think it says something that it happened. It was so long ago.
oh yeah.
And he made a considerable life change because of it.
Yeah,
and
most
that's, like,
people who get a DUI don't make that change,
No.
and it's a really good change to make. So,
like,
it is a definite like.
it shows growth. It shows, oh, you
Yes.
can make a mistake, learn from that mistake, and do something
Yeah.
different. And guess what I want in my goddamn leadership?
Yeah, no fucking shit. I mean, goddamn. So another thing that I heard about that was that he was like forced to resign or something, and I looked it up, and it was like he put in a letter of resignation to his school,
Yeah.
and then the principal was like, "No, we fucking need you, so stay here."
I do not accept your letter of resignation.
That's what happened.
I just picture it like one of those like really dramatic like scenes from a movie when the cop is like, "I'm turning in my badge because I fucked up," and he's like, "I don't want your badge."
Yeah. No, so I heard this from one of my buddies who's a Trumper, and I was like, I can't find anything that said that he was forced to resign, and I didn't really get much back after that. I literally put a quote in there because I looked up an article. The principal had said, like, he told the article, we need this guy, so we're not going to allow him to resign right now. So, like,
apparently he also personally apologized to the football team.
I believe it.
Man, I had a shop teacher who got a DUI. You kind of expected it. He was
From
like
your shop teacher.
he had a mullet and would bum shoes off of kids in class rather than confiscating their tobacco. He was that kind of shop teacher.
Nice.
He agreed to do like a survey for the yearbook. He's like, if the kids voted for him to like shave his mullet off, he would do it.
Yeah.
And they did, and he didn't do it. He was that kind of shop teacher. So
no.
like, you expected him. I mean, it wasn't like, oh wow, he got a D-dub. I never saw that coming.
Right.
But he never personally apologized to us or anything.
Right. Well, I think that's a little bit different than being the coach of a young group of young men that you're trying to tell them to not do the thing that you just did specifically.
Fair.
So, but I feel sorry for your shop teacher and for you to have to deal with him being your shop teacher and then.
I thought it was hilarious personally. I mean, it fit. It just rounded out. What? He was hilarious.
He was a good teacher. Cody said he was a good teacher.
You know exactly who I'm talking about, don't you, Cody?
Yeah.
I ain't gonna say it on the air, but
it's a good call.
But anyway, yeah. So there's the DUI. There's nothing there. Like, get the fuck over it. Nobody cares.
Also, even if it was like he didn't do any of the things the right way, it was 30 fucking years ago and he's sober now. So fuck off. Even if he wasn't sober, fuck off.
And also, you can't be a Republican and talk shit about a DUI when, like, first of all, Bush had a DUI and went AWOL from the military, from the National Guard or the Air National Guard, didn't he? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, if they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all. So
that's pretty much the slogan.
And then there's Walz let Minnesota burn. No, he didn't. It was like a couple blocks in Minneapolis that a lot of it was instigated by white supremacists. One of them was from Texas.
Yeah.
Trying to start race wars. If the fucking MAGA people wouldn't have shown up to the riots, there probably wouldn't have been so many riots. Like the non-peaceful protesters were. Yeah.
So like there were like literal white supremacist instigators there, and it didn't even remotely like affect the downtown like main.
No, not even close
area. There were a couple blocks in some neighborhoods that were predominantly people of color, and like it sucked that like those
Yeah.
communities like had to suffer even more in some of those businesses. Small business owners had
Oh,
to suffer.
absolutely. And there was definitely damage. I
Yeah,
think like
yeah, yeah.
70 buildings were lost.
I think it
70
was
businesses
closer to
were
like
lost or
100.
something.
I looked it up because
Mhm.
I had this argument
Yeah.
with my friends,
Mhm.
and I looked it up, and there were like I think a total of like 126 buildings that were condemned,
Mm.
and I was comparing it to the '92 Rodney King riots,
Mhm.
where like over 1,000
Right.
fucking buildings were destroyed.
And you had people on top of their house or on top of their businesses with like weapon like
Right,
guns and
shotgun- yeah,
shit.
exactly, exactly. So like, if you're trying to say Minneapolis burned down
Mhm.
worse than LA did in '92,
Right.
when it's like a tenth of
Yeah.
what fucking happened there, for an equally as righteous fucking
Oh,
cause.
absolutely. And then to say that he handled it poorly, there's just nothing really. Hindsight's 2020. Pun
Well,
intended.
and he
I guess.
admitted it that like he felt like he didn't do a good enough job,
Right.
which is fair because
Mhm.
how do you like? You want to always do the best job you
mhm.
can, and so like he was saying like I did my best, but I feel like I still failed.
Right.
So like that's understandable.
And again, hindsight's 2020. You can look back and say we could have done this, and this different,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
probably prevented this. But in the moment of that situation, he was still a relatively new governor.
Well, and it took him a total of like less than 72 hours to call in the police and the National Guard,
Yep.
the military police.
And
so
part of the problem with that, according to the after action report from the Minneapolis Police Department, was that the mayor and the chief of police did not request the National Guard properly because they're just like, we need the National Guard, and Walz is like, what do you need from the National Guard? There's a lot of things.
right, I don't think you wanted my artillery unit to
Right.
be pulled up, you know?
Like what exactly? What is your mission that you need? We need this communicated to us so we can send you the right people.
Right,
And
it's
then
not like if there's a flood happening where it's like, yeah, like we have flood protocols here.
Yep.
And like we do have like riot protocols, obviously.
Yeah.
But like it sounds like they weren't being very communicative. or
No, and then
specific enough.
there's protocols to request that stuff that they didn't follow, and then they're like, we asked for it, we didn't get it, and so it seems like a lot of the blame, so to speak, lies in just incompetence at the city level with those officials.
Yeah, I mean, and just Minneapolis has never experienced
No,
a riot
it's an
situation,
unprecedented
like,
situation.
for for this community. It's just never happened to this
Mhm.
scale before, and so
Yeah.
like, I don't think they took that long in responding, just reasonably. So
And from every investigation, they said Walz handled it as well as could have been expected for the situation. Trump thought he handled it amazingly.
yeah, he's on video recording like, for praising Walz on his handling of the situation of the riots. So like, if I could take it from the horse's mouth, if you're gonna take it from anybody's mouth,
Yep.
like,
Um,
goddamn.
Yeah, and then they're trying to attack him some on Minnesota's policy. Obviously, Walz's executive experience comes from being the governor of Minnesota.
right.
So if you're gonna attack him on that, sure. And they're trying to paint Minnesota as a hellscape. The third best hellscape in the country to live in, or fourth best.
Mean, haven't you heard of Murderopolis? You know, I fucking love it when I hear people say that. I'm like, bro, I've lived in and around Minneapolis for the last like fucking 8 to 10 years, and still not murdered. Still never
Yeah.
seen a murder. Still never even heard a gunshot near any of my residences.
Yeah, you were down there when the Floyd stuff was going on too, right?
Pretty near. Not. I was
Oh.
moved out just before it all happened,
I
but
was
yeah.
gonna say, you know, were you dodging flaming buildings
No.
falling down and stuff?
No, but we did live like 15 minutes away from where all that stuff was happening.
So yeah. So when it comes to policy, they're big mad calling him Tampon Tim because he said that kids who are, you know, of that age should have access to feminine hygiene products. Oh,
Right.
the horror.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I don't know if you have it in here, but my favorite thing about calling Tim Walz Tampon Tim
Mm-hmm.
is that tampons are really good
At
at stopping red waves. Like they set themselves
Yep,
up
I
so
know.
badly for that shit. Like I don't know how you don't do a little bit more like like study of like the phrase. I don't focus studies. Like they didn't do a single focus study on that phraseology.
Their branding's floundering because this is uncharted territory for them. Like they've had a lot of time building up against traditional Democratic candidates, and now they don't have that anymore.
That's true.
That's true. But I've heard that they're like, oh, there's tampons in the men's bathroom, and that's what they're freaking out about.
Right.
That's not a law.
No, yeah, right. You have in here you just had to supply tampons to all students,
make them accessible to students. That's how the law is written. Is feminine hygiene products need to be accessible to students. How the school decides to implement accessible to students is up to them. There's nothing in the bill whatsoever that says that it has to be in a men's bathroom.
Sure.
Nothing.
Right.
So like again, it's getting mad about shit they made up.
Even if it did, and even if it so even say it doesn't, which it doesn't, and Tim Walz still came out and said, "Hey, you should put tampons in men's restrooms." Who gives a flying fuck, bro?
Zero.
Like
zero.
What the fuck are you like complaining about? Like it's in a little thing in the corner of the fucking like where you wash your hands, which let's be honest, most men fucking just walk right past it fucking anyways.
Yeah.
Like nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah, there's nothing that would be a problem with it if that was the law.
Right.
Or if it was Walz's
Mandate,
stance. And it's not. It's simply not. And it's like Republicans again being really mad about shit they themselves made up. Like it's their MO. But so yeah, if they're gonna bitch about that, he passed no such law. He just made feminine hygiene products available to students. That was it.
Sounds terrible.
As
usual.
He
Children
did
hater.
And then he did the most horrible thing of all, which was feeding children.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a worse thing that you could do for children is to make sure that they have a little bit of food, you know, in their lives for breakfast and lunch.
Yeah. You know what? Starving to death is what builds character, okay?
Right, that's what I've heard, actually. He's depriving them of the character building of starving. Yeah, it's great.
The biggest bitch I've heard about it from them is like, who's going to pay for it? Because, you know, that's the problem, not when we're blowing up brown children, but it's definitely the problem when we're feeding our own children.
Right.
And so that always brings up tax burden. They're like, oh, Minnesota's horrible to live in because our taxes are so high. And we have the 7th highest tax burden in the country, which sounds bad if you're fucking stupid. Because it's not true. I mean, it's true if you look at it as an overall tax burden of what our state taxes versus what I guess income would be.
Right.
It doesn't paint a picture because we have what's called a progressive tax system.
Well, and the tax system is it's very much workable to be however you want to make it. Some people make it so everybody has to pay a lot of fucking money, and some states and countries make it so that you know, it affects the poorest people the least.
Yeah. And some states make it where it affects the poorest people the most.
Right.
Which is really what I'm getting at here is Minnesota's tax system is progressive. So for the majority of Americans, our tax burden is very, very reasonable. Or majority of Minnesotans, our tax burden is very, very reasonable. We have you know, our lowest tax brackets like 5.35% or something like that for income tax. The next one up is like 6.8%. So like that's where most of Minnesotans fit.
Yeah,
I mean, that's right at that tax burden of, you know, like Florida and Tennessee. But then the difference is that like they have to make up all of that money they don't get from income tax someplace else.
Right.
And they are making that up in high sales tax, which affects poor people the most. They're making that up in fees for all of the services you need to file for all the time, licensing fees and all that sort of stuff. They're making that up for sales tax because if the state isn't supporting the counties get their revenue from sales tax. That's where they're pulling it from.
See, like,
or not sales tax, property tax.
Right. So, funny thing, this actually just came up. I'm sort of outing my parents on this. They moved to South Carolina, a low tax burden state, right? And so they're buying a new what do you call the little boats that have like 1 or 2 engines and they have like a couple seats?
Fishing boat?
Yeah, basically what Dexter,
Yeah,
has one of those things. They just got one of those, and they were like, "Can we use your address as our like filing of it?" Because in South Carolina, they do an annual property tax on stuff like
on property, on actual like on property other than the actual physical property you live on,
not just like the registration to like the registration fee that you do for every boat, every car that you ever own across the country.
You're taxed like you're taxed on your house on it. Which is insane because like obviously I've got all kinds of toys, right? And people have been like, man, I can't imagine your property tax. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like we don't pay property tax on that kind of property.
On a car? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So a schooner. Sorry, that's what somebody said. I don't know if that's correct, but is it?
Sounds right. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, but yeah, so that's the point is they make it up in all of these fees that affect poorer people more,
or just not millionaires, like anybody, like.
And when that happens, the tax burden actually goes up, but it's not reflected as a tax burden because it's a fee or a service or like whatever. Yeah. Minnesota has no sales tax on food and clothing. Yeah. Minnesota has a very progressive property tax on, our actual like real estate property where if you live on it, you get a homestead exemption. The lower your property is worth, the more money you get off on that homestead exemption. Yeah. You get a tax refund from the state if you make under so much money for your property tax. It's the most progressive tax system in the country, which means that, we really don't pay that much in taxes unless you're really rich. We make it up on the wealthy and on corporate taxes. And so that, which is obviously going to make us a dumpster fire and scare away all the job creators, which is why we're like the 4th best state to live in, been top 5 for years, 4th happiest state, 4th healthiest state. We're actually like the 4th, like if you average everything, we're the 4th across the board on everything.
Just the 4th best state.
4th best state, period.
Everything.
Third highest median household income when adjusted for cost of living, which I thought was really cool because you know you look at cost of living, you look like obviously California has a really high median income
and taxes involved with that calculation.
Yeah, but then you have a really high cost of living. So Minnesota, you get the 3rd best bang for your buck as far as the dollars you bring in.
Pretty that stat alone is enough to be to put the whole narrative of high taxes to shame.
Yep, absolutely. 4th best in infrastructure, 4th most educated state. We have the highest ACT scores in the country. 3rd for women participation in the workforce, 2nd for natural resources. It goes on and on and on and on. And so, like, how you can characterize the state as a dumpster fire when by every single metric we're doing almost the best.
Right, yeah. I mean, as good as anybody could reasonably want to be. Like, a top 10 percentile or 90 percentile fucking state. Like, that's...
Yeah, it's just nuts to me. There's no objective argument to say that our state is doing bad as a state.
No, especially when you compare, like, those are, like, good things. Like, obviously, if you want to talk about, like, some of the things that we're not doing as well, like, there are some stats out there. But, like, it's not related to taxes and, like, income generally. It's, like, affordability, and it's, like... stuff like
we've got some stuff to do with like racial equality and stuff too that we're working on, but we definitely have work to do there. Partially because we went from the whitest state in the world to having an influx of immigrants over the past 20 years or something, and that takes
a whole 60,000 Somalis. But now we're Somaliville or whatever. Like. Fucking racist shit.
Yeah, but hey, when it's just like Casper out there, and you just introduce a little bit of pepper, it's gonna stand out.
Yeah, it does stand out. That's for sure.
Anyway,
so that's Tim Walz introduction, basically leading up to what is this week is the DNC or last when this comes out.
It's currently the DNC while we're recording this, so we're on currently day 3. We are caught up to day 2 of the DNC. As of recording.
Right.
And so far, the ratings are huge.
They're huge.
They're the biggest ratings anybody's ever seen. Nobody has ratings like the DNC.
Yep.
No, but no, seriously, 21% higher first day ratings than the RNC, which is got to be getting under a certain person who's very concerned with ratings.
Yep. Which leads me to ask our producer Cody here to line up, I think a video that promoting Kamala's candidacy is just really not too bad. And
Sorry for the people on the live. You won't be able to see this because I'm not that talented with cameras, but
I click it. Yep, perfect. So we're just going to play this just to kind of set the stage that the DNC has set for themselves. So here we go. Jordan is live reacting to this.
yeah, I haven't actually seen this yet.
I've seen it once or twice.
Is that Beyonce?
Beats me.
What kind of America do we want? One where we're divided, angry, depressed? Come on, we're Americans. Fascism, we conquered it. The moon, landed on it. The future, building it. Freedom,
Fucking
nobody
freedom.
loves it more. And we fight for it. Freedom from control. Freedom from extremism and fear.
Extremists want to take us back, but we are not going back.
We go forward. That's American. And we need a leader who is for the people.
Ours is a fight for the future.
Kamala Harris. Protecting people from predators and big drug cartels. Holding Wall Street banks accountable.
A crime perpetrated against our middle class.
Standing up to dictators. And fighting for all of us.
I say we fight.
That's our choice. A prosecutor or a felon.
Are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win.
That was pretty good. That was
Right? So, I mean, like, that's the vibe right
Mhm.
now at the DNC.
Yeah,
Which is, like, if you're a regular-ass Democrat, that's a pretty good vibe.
that is a very good vibe. I mean, personally, like the pushing the prosecutor thing still makes me cringe just a tad.
Yeah,
just a
because
tad.
when we actually
Uh-huh.
know about her record, it's not always stellar. So, like,
Well, just prosecutor in general is something that you
yeah,
know
right.
it just makes my skin crawl a tad. But
I mean, at least you're
What?
not like a defendant lawyer for
a criminal defense.
not criminal defense, but criminal defense, but like a private attorney. So you're not like defending, like, I don't know. I'd rather you be a prosecutor prosecuting criminals than like a criminal defendant lawyer.
I don't
criminal
know about
defense lawyer.
that.
Really?
I have more respect for criminal defense lawyers.
Yeah, you have more respect for Trump's lawyers.
I mean, I guess. No. If you're dumb enough, because you're dumb enough to take that one on, that's on you. Like,
all right, so
like a good lawyer knows like this case just isn't winnable because like let's be real, most criminal defense lawyers, like if they're like, oh yeah, you murdered somebody, like I am going to try to make sure that you are getting the fairest shake you can get out of the criminal justice system.
wow, yeah.
Like, I'm going to save you from the death penalty type of thing, try to get you life instead or something along those lines.
Yeah, so I would say a public defender, abso-fucking-lutely, but a private criminal defense lawyer who defends these fucking millionaires, 100 millionaires about like trying to get out of their
Okay,
white
yeah,
collar
fuck
crimes.
them. I mean, then you're talking some Burgoyne shit, but then like I don't know.
I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're a criminal defense lawyer, like probably you're not going to do that as long in like a public defender sense, because that's not where the money is. But that's where the people that need defense
I
are.
suppose. I mean, yeah, lawyers
So
in
like,
general
it would
are
go
douchebags.
public defense lawyer,
Mhm.
prosecutor, private criminal defense.
Depends on private criminal defense.
Sure, I mean you want to make like non-millionaire people class,
Right.
and then or like
Because like what about all the people who like volunteer for the Innocence Project or like work for the Innocence Project and shit like that? Like that's all,
basically public defenders.
but they're not.
But it's like a pro bono, so it's basically the same thing.
All right.
Anyway, but no, I agree. There were definitely some cringy moments.
The freedom thing always it makes me
Yeah.
cringe a little bit just because of what the connotation. But I appreciate the fact that they're trying to take the word back.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
And I think
absolutely.
the way that they did it, especially like protects from like fascism, and then it's like a guy walking by with the Trump flag. That was pretty good, and, like that
Right.
kind of shit. And,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
Mhm.
it was difficult for me as somebody, and I think for you as well, as people who understand historically what that flag represents
Yeah.
across the world
Mhm.
and freedom, like that phraseology,
We're like
what's sort
one
of like
of the least free countries and always have been,
or how much freedom we've spread across the world, like we're fucking Helldiver 2 over here, we're spreading democracy. Like it's a little it hurts a little bit.
Yeah,
And like
we
I
definitely don't lead the world in freedom by
no, definitely not. So like in that sense, it kind of hurt me, but in the sense of like just like a normie, like absolutely, I'm sure that like
well, and
totally
I do
resonates.
like that they expanded on it of like freedom to choose what you want to do with your own body and like
Yeah.
that. Like it's like this is what freedom means.
right.
and
They
this
didn't
is
just
what
put like
we're-
a American flag and a bald
a bald
eagle
eagle.
like cawing on the screen. Like they were like, yeah, like this is freedom. This is what freedom means to us, and that is basically the message
Yeah.
of the Kamala or the the
so
Harris Walz
I
party.
think the few moments that felt a little cringe to me, they definitely brought back in a very uncringy way, and I liked it. I thought it was good. I think it really sets the vibe.
They hit the notes, like the fireworks, the little girl, the cowboy
Yeah.
riding his horse, the sprinters.
Yep.
Like they did like the.
It was very America.
It was very America without being
America.
overtly American. So,
No,
yeah, I thought it was a really good ad, and probably too long to ever put on a full TV.
Oh my god, no! That was like I was like, okay,
But-
they can wrap this one up now.
but intro to the DNC, like absolutely, like
Absolutely.
that's like
No,
the
that was pretty
hype,
good.
the hype, film that you need.
No, that and obviously the hype, the vibe really seems to be there because like Lil Jon crashed the DNC. Like he just comes out singing shots, like like that's what you're setting for your. They've got like Kid Rock and
Right, singing to himself and like 20 people.
and then Lil Jon comes out and it's suddenly a club that's like filled out an entire stadium. It was.
They got the star power right for sure on that one.
And apparently the Obamas, even after all of this time, are still superstars. Like,
Oh man! To be fair, I didn't listen to Michelle's speech. I did listen to Obama's on the way over here, and like he's still got it.
Yeah.
And like if you wanted, you couldn't find a better messenger
No.
for the Harris Walz ticket than both of the Obamas. So,
Yeah.
like
I
they
mean,
both slapped.
Michelle Obama is still one of the most popular Democrats ever, and she's not even like a politician.
No, she's just a lawyer, like a regular person. Her
As
husband,
first lady just
Right,
happened to be
yeah.
no, she was like the most popular choice. Like when Biden was gonna step aside, they're like, yeah, we should do Michelle Obama. Like it was by far the most popular choice.
I
and-
think she's popular. I don't think she would win. but-
no, I don't think she was the right choice.
I don't think she wants to do it either.
No, like we got the fuck. Do you see how gray my husband's hair got? Yeah, we didn't do that
You
shit
made a
again.
joke that he doesn't look any older either. I was like, okay, sure. Oh, and my favorite part about his speech
Uh-huh.
was the Donald Trump seems to always care about crowd sizes.
Yeah.
Where he did this. You know? I was like, leave it to a former
Oh.
sitting U.S. president to like make a dick joke.
The black one too.
He didn't even think about it.
Dude, he has always had the swag when it comes to former presidents. So
Well, and I really, really enjoyed AOC's speaking time. Like, she is like what the future of the Democratic Party should be pointing towards.
absolutely,
Even though they're sort of still not really fully adopting her. Like, they did give her a slot, which
Yep.
is saying something because they only had a few slots available. But she made a really, really compelling argument for the progressive caucus and the progressive platform,
yeah,
which is, you know, obviously incredible to have that on the main stage of the DNC.
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm happy to see that they're embracing, at least at the moment, the progressiveness a little bit. So
Yeah, so I think on our next episode or maybe the one after, who knows, we're going to talk about the embracing of the progressive platform and is that going to last?
Yeah,
Sort of question.
No.
After the election.
yeah, well, yeah. We'll see if they're just pandering to us at the moment, or
Right.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Bernie was up there
Bernie
too,
was up there.
doing his. I love how he always gives the same speech where his hands go on the side of the podium. Like,
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't wasn't really super compelled by Bernie this time. Like, sometimes he like really hits. This time it sort of felt like a little bit of a lecture. Like, it was everything he was saying was very, very accurate
on,
and
yeah.
like on trend, but just
I didn't
deliver
actually
it.
hear it. I only watched it because I was at the bar having dinner, and they had Fox News on, and it was funny how Fox was covering the DNC, and then like the entire time they had like a side image up of the protest going on outside, just like, come on, do something, light something on fire, throw a brick, like we need to make this look bad. And I have no idea what they were saying, but I could tell that they were running their mouth. Jesse Waters was running his mouth the entire time that they were talking. I'm like, I see both of your lips moving.
Yeah, right.
How are you covering this effectively? So
I watched Hassan Piker's coverage of the first day.
Yeah.
And he was at the pro-Palestine protest on the first day.
Andrew's there too. It was funny actually because I saw Fox News's angle of it. And then I pulled his live up, and he was like right across from the camera. Like, I couldn't see him specifically, but you could see like his camera was pointing at their camera, basically.
Yeah. So Hassan said that there was around 40,000 people protesting.
Yeah,
Which is
insane.
a lot of
That's
fucking
a lot of
people. Like, that's a couple high school stadium, like football stadiums. That's like half of a college football stadium. You know, like. That's a lot of fucking people.
And that was the thing too, is the guy that was sitting like next to me at the bar was like talking to other people, and he's like, "Oh yeah, and I'm sure they're peaceful protesters, right?" I'm like, they're just kind of standing around. They're not really they're not really doing anything, and I haven't heard of any like major disruptions. And if it's 40,000 people,
yeah, I did hear that they like sort of broke it up a little bit because of like supposedly some of the lines that were made sort of got broken or disrupted or something, and so the police had to kind of crack down on that. But like.
It was nothing major, especially for a protest that size.
So, yeah, 40,000 people. Like, I don't even know how you like. Even if that's how you know that they are peaceful, because 40,000 violent people, looks a lot different than 40,000 peaceful fucking people. So, like, just think about what you're saying for a moment.
Yep. But no, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit in that next episode too, I guess.
But so far, DNC, pretty darn good. You know, it's the DNC, so it's.
I mean, it's a formality at this point. Like, oh my God, Kamala was the nominee. Did not see that coming.
Right?
Like they made a huge deal about it, which was cool. You know, the roll call thing was cool.
Yeah. Well, and there was like some really interesting moments that came
Yeah.
up because of the roll call. And a couple of the people that were there were like people who had issues getting abortions for medical reasons in Republican-ran states like
Yeah.
Texas.
Mhm.
And so it was like really powerful to hear their stories at the
Yeah.
DNC, like
Mhm.
really highlighting the message that we've been saying needs to be the fucking headline.
Yep. No,
So
I've been heartened through a
Right.
lot of this.
Not disheartened.
Not disheartened. No, it's nice to actually be somewhat excited about the direction of an election for
Yeah,
once. You
like
know?
the vibes are good. The
Mhm.
vibes are good. And so I'm worried that the vibes are just vibes.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, like we're going to talk about, obviously vote
Mm-hmm.
for her and for Tim Walz especially, but like
And obviously, our vibes are riding a little high too, because like it's our guy again. We
Right,
haven't
yeah.
had this since Mondale, you
right,
know.
exactly. The Mondale ticket in '84 should have beat Reagan. Fuck
Should
Reagan.
have. Well, and Mondale was Carter's VP, so
Right.
Mondale ran against Reagan as VP, like Walz is now running
Right.
against
Yeah,
Trump.
that was
as,
poetic.
And so hopefully we can change history and it doesn't repeat
the
itself.
biggest difference is that we'd have to wait a lot longer for Kamala to step down before Walz would be like the successor.
Right. Yeah.
And he'd be pretty old by that point.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. 68. If he runs through, if they served 2 full terms and he ran after her, he'd be 68. Which is young by comparison.
Exactly.
Anyway,
yeah,
I think we've beat this one to death.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody, if it answered some of those talking points that people have brought up about Walz,
And about freedom.
and about the hellscape of Minnesota, this smoldering pile of post-apocalyptic Mad Max wasteland that we live in.
That's right.
Still the 4th best post-apocalyptic wasteland. With
Just
the
because we
4th.
still have all the
That hot dish makes people happy.
That's right.
Anyway, guys, we will see you next week. If you like the podcast, if you like the content, and you support us, we've got merchandise on offthewagon.com, both Off the Wagon merchandise and Let Them Eat Toast merchandise, stickers, hats, all that kind of stuff. We've got a Patreon.
Yeah, we've got a Patreon, Let Them Eat Toast Patreon. We have YouTube subscriptions now. We are working on trying to create additional content for that. We have not gotten a ton of feedback either way, so
Yeah.
we're interested in making additional, content for members. Even if it's just chatting with us on our Patreon. We've chatted with a couple of our members before, so if you want to get some, one-on-one instant messaging, we can definitely work that out. And if you want to, maybe make appearance on the show if you've got a good question for us.
We might do
Yeah.
a follower appreciation thing for subscribers at some point.
Exactly.
Something along those lines. Also, I forgot I set it up, but I do have subscription. A couple of you are subscribed on my TikTok. It doesn't offer a lot, like a special badge or something at the moment. We've been talking about maybe doing some subscriber-only content for that. But if you feel like doing that, the monthly support helps us out a lot. We spend a lot of time and money. We rent the studio space and everything.
Yep.
Doing this stuff. We've got to pay for the software to host people remotely, so we can have cool guests that don't live in the East Central Minnesota area. And yeah. So, if you guys feel so compelled to do that, we really appreciate it. Otherwise, you guys just watching, we get a little bit of
subscribe and
revenue
share,
just from watching, and we only do this really because you guys sit here and listen to us. For some reason, we still haven't figured it out, but we're happy you do, and that's our main reason we do it. It just sucks that it costs us money because we would love to do it for for nothing. But
Your support is appreciated always.
Capitalism, man.
We all exist in it.
Anyway, we love you all. Thank you, and we will see you guys next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.